Go to our top story, which comes from Northwest Arkansas and Walmart announcing a new final mile and delivery method with writer Jack Dalio. Jack Dalio is here to talk all about it. Jack, thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Anthony and Kaylee. Thanks for having me on.
And Jack, it seems like just last week we were up in Northwest Arkansas in the heart of Wal-Mart country with our Future Supply Chain event. And this topic, this story really would have fit really well into the thread of the future of supply chain because we're talking robotics and drone delivery, and Walmart, probably one of the biggest retailers now getting into that space. What can you tell us about it?
Yeah, they are the world's biggest retailer, and they've got the safety net to really test out some of these more experimental ventures. So there's a patent that Walmart filed last week. It describes this system where robots are sort of the primary mechanism for delivery. But when those robots run into obstacles, they have the ability to send out their own delivery drone, which will be mounted on top of the robot as sort of a backup mechanism whenever they run into obstacles. So you'd have an automated guided vehicle, or an AGV, follow along a set delivery route, which is pre-calculated beforehand. And then that AGV would include a storage area and a mount on top that holds the drone. Each robot or AGV would have a sensor or sensors that tell it when an obstacle is blocking its path. That could be a person, it could be an animal, it could be another vehicle. And when certain conditions are met, the robot would just automatically release a drone to finish the delivery. So for example, one of those conditions might be that the robot is stopped and doesn't have enough battery life to complete the delivery. It could be that the obstacle hasn't moved after a set amount of time. An example that Walmart gives is that the robot might be stopped at a gated residence, and after a certain amount of time, it'll release a delivery drone instead to fly and finish the delivery the rest of the way. So Walmart has not yet said whether or not this is in testing, and if it is, it'll probably be at least a couple of years before this sort of thing really gets adopted. But it's a very exciting concept because, as far as I'm aware, I don't think any retailer has really combined both robot and drone delivery. There's plenty that are looking at one or the other, but to combine both would be pretty groundbreaking.
All I can think of is, they've got those like little robotic delivery vehicles that are making deliveries on college campuses right now, right? And you see those viral videos of those like little tiny guys that are driving along and they like fall into a hole, or they get like run over by a car, right? And can you imagine just watching it fall into a hole and then just like, out pops this little drone and just keeps on going with the delivery? Like that's basically what this is talking about, right? Is it like it's the backup to the backup of the drone delivery?
Yeah, pretty much. Believe it or not, that's exactly what Walmart's got in mind with this. Anytime the ground-based robot runs into an obstacle, it'll just let out a little drone, and then the delivery will be completed from there.
Now, Jack, I know this has been a long time coming. It sounds like there's still a long way to go, but do you think some of this is going to be really influenced by just the need to get more efficient, and maybe after the pandemic, not being able to rely as much on humans just because we get sick from time to time, or maybe we are looking for different jobs or something like that? Do you think that has any kind of influence on the speed of how this is coming along?
I think it certainly does. And, Walmart has also looked at some other technologies that are taking the driver out of delivery. They have a couple of pilots with some autonomous trucking companies, including a couple in Northwest Arkansas where we just were. Gaddick, for example, is one of those companies that is taking the driver out of the middle mile delivery and automating an entire box truck. So there are certainly a lot of companies that are looking at some of these solutions that are trying to get the driver out of delivery, either by using an autonomous vehicle or using a different kind of vehicle altogether, like a drone.
And so then when the human guiding stops of the main delivery vehicle, does the human guidance pick up on that drone as well? Or is the drone itself now programmed to take the delivery instructions from the original vehicle and then finish out that first delivery?
So the proposal would call for a remote operator to be overseeing everything, but it also describes a system that would calculate sort of an alternative delivery route for the drone. And the drone from there would be able to autonomously fly itself the rest of the way without an operator. But the patent does call for an operator to be present just to observe and make sure everything is going smoothly.
And Jack, you mentioned some are doing one or the other, but no one's doing both. Can you talk about some of the other retailers or shippers that are toying with this idea or experimenting with drone or autonomous vehicle for final mile?
Yeah, actually, not too long ago, Uber Eats is a company that started experimenting with this. There's a company called Motional out in California that they're experimenting with. They're doing using robots to deliver over a short distance in certain neighborhoods. Then there's also companies like you mentioned that are bringing robots to college campuses. Starship Technologies is one of those companies. They've got a couple of delivery pilots out there. Neuro is another company that is in this space. They've got a partnership with Domino's down in Houston, where they're doing autonomous pizza delivery. So some very cool pilots are in the works right now.
And so then, Jack, you mentioned that this is just a patent that has been filed by Walmart. So they're not quite in the process of actually deploying this technology. But there was also a patent that was kind of similar filed by Amazon not too long ago. Can you tell us about the differences between the two patents and then what Amazon is doing versus what Walmart's doing?
Yes, so Amazon's patent was filed just under a year ago. And so Amazon's rendition of this model would use a delivery van as sort of the main mode of delivery. And the van would then release smaller ground-based robots instead of aerial drones. So Amazon's version is a little bit more of a sort of a hub and spoke model. The idea would be for the van to drive into a neighborhood, and instead of going house to house and making deliveries, it would stay in one place and release sort of a mini fleet of robots to handle all the deliveries at one time. And under Amazon's patent, the smaller robots would actually be controlled by the van itself. So the van would have an array of sensors that takes in the environment and tells the robots themselves where to go. So in Walmart's version, the drone that's released by the ground-based robot, that would be fully autonomous. It would have its own set of sensors. And Walmart's also using the solution a little bit differently than Amazon. This would be used more for on-demand deliveries, straight out of stores. Amazon's solution is more of a connection to the back end, to the warehouse or the distribution center, that would kind of extend that hub and spoke model a little bit more.
Now, Jack, with this being kind of two different solutions for two different areas, do you see either one of them kind of borrowing from the other to just kind of complete another link in the supply chain?
I think absolutely. I think there's definitely things that each company can learn from the other. I think there are interesting pieces of both models that could definitely be on the fast track to adoption if they're handled the correct way.
And Jack, so that kind of does it for this topic today, but you do a ton of writing around last mile space, specifically around autonomy in the last mile. And you're getting ready to start something new. We've got something new taking off, pardon the pun, here for us on FreightWaves with a show that you're going to start. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I sure can. We've got a new show coming out. It's called The Drop Zone. It's going to be a monthly look at different parts of drone technology. This first episode coming out, it's going to focus on humanitarian drone deliveries. So delivering things like blood, vaccines, test samples, things like that. Really cool stuff. You won't want to miss it. First episode's coming out soon. Stay tuned.
I know that the last time we talked, Jack, when you were on my show At Your Doorstep, you mentioned that kind of drone technology is something that really drew you into the transportation space overall. So I'm excited to get to see this from you and get to see a little bit more focus on the actual drone tech and some of the really cool innovations that are going on right now in the space. When you're writing about drone tech and last mile delivery, is there someone, maybe a company who stands out as a really great contender, or a space or a piece of last mile delivery with drone tech that you think is like the one to watch coming up soon?
Yeah, I think that Flytrex is a really interesting company to keep an eye on. I think that they have really figured out a specific use case for drones. They're flying them directly into customers' backyards in the suburbs, as opposed to the cities. I've talked about this and written about this in the past, but I personally could see drones being a little bit more effective in the suburbs, where there's not all that infrastructure that they have to navigate between. So Flytrex is a company that's really honing in on that last mile, super short drone deliveries within 5 minutes. That I think that's got a really easy path to commercial adoption.
Jack, we're looking forward to it. If people want to reach out, get in touch with you, talk a little bit more about this topic, how can they do that?
You can find me on LinkedIn. You can send me an email, jdalio@freightwaves.com. And you can also find me on Twitter @Jack_Dalio.
Awesome, Jack. And then when can we expect that first episode of your show to air? And then is there a regular schedule for it, or is it just kind of dropping once a month?
It'll be once a month. We don't have a set date yet, but keep an eye on it late this week, early next week.
Awesome, Jack. Well, thanks for dropping in.